The phone screen glared at Emily's face in the dark room, her trembling fingers hovering over the unanswered call that had rung at 3 a.m. She whispered, "Michael promised distance was temporary, so why does silence feel permanent?" The chill in her apartment seeped into her bones, each second of the call log mocking her with proof of his absence. Her chest tightened as if invisible hands pressed down, making her wonder if love could collapse under the weight of a single ignored ring. Michael's words from weeks ago echoed cruelly, "We'll be stronger when we're finally together." Yet the emptiness was louder than his voice. She clenched the phone like it was her last lifeline, every vibration of the silence louder than thunder. The distance had been a battlefield, but tonight it felt like surrender. The storm of heartbreak had arrived without warning, and she was already drowning in it. Emily sat frozen, staring at the phone that had turned into her enemy. Her thoughts tangled in the silence he left behind. She remembered Michael's laughter on their last video call, his voice saying, "Just hold on for me." Her chest ached with the memory. Every corner of the room echoed with promises she had memorized, promises that now felt like lies. She pressed her forehead against her knees, whispering to herself that this was just a missed call, not the death of love. Yet a whisper of doubt coiled tighter in her mind, whispering that distance was a cover, a shield for secrets she wasn't meant to know. She clenched her jaw, trying to believe, but her body betrayed her hope, shivering in dread of an answer that might never come. Michael had once told Emily that their love was too strong to be broken by miles. The words replayed like a broken record, taunting her as she stared at the rain. She whispered his name, Michael, hoping the sound of it could anchor her. Instead, the silence mocked her devotion. She thought of the nights she had stayed awake to match his time zone, her exams she'd nearly failed, the birthdays she had spent alone. Every sacrifice felt heavier now, like a debt unpaid. She wanted to believe he was just busy, but the way her stomach twisted told her the truth was darker. Her heart begged her to trust him, yet her mind screamed that he was already gone. The phone buzzed once with a notification, but it wasn't him. Her heart leapt, then sank into disappointment so deep she thought it might crush her ribs. She whispered, "Why isn't it you?" Her voice cracked, a sound swallowed by the storm outside. She wanted to scream, to call again, but fear kept her paralyzed. Fear that he would ignore her again. Fear that she was chasing a ghost in another life. She dug her nails into her palm, punishing herself for doubting, punishing herself for believing. She prayed for a message, a word, anything that said she wasn't alone in this silent war. But the phone stayed still, and the room grew colder. Emily pressed her face into her hands, the sound of rain hammering the glass, matching the chaos in her chest. She remembered her last promise to Michael. "I'll wait as long as it takes." Now the words felt like chains binding her to someone who might have already let go. She wanted to believe his silence was innocent, but the ache in her body told her it was betrayal. She whispered, "Please, just answer me," her voice breaking. The storm outside howled louder, drowning her plea. In that moment, she realized the war of distance had already begun, and she was losing before it even started. Emily woke with swollen eyes, sunlight cutting through the blinds like blades across her face. She whispered, "Michael said he'd call today." She tried to summon hope, but dread gnawed at her chest. Every morning began with a ritual, checking her phone before she even breathed. It was her tether, her cruel clock, her proof she wasn't forgotten. She scrolled through old messages, rereading his words, "I'll never leave you." She wanted to believe them, but the silence of last night felt louder than any lie. Her heart clung to the fragments of love, but her mind whispered betrayal. She pressed the phone to her lips, praying his name would reach him through the distance. She forced herself out of bed, dragging her body through motions that felt meaningless. Coffee brewed, but she didn't taste it. Every sound in the apartment reminded her of his absence. She whispered, "If you loved me, you'd be here." The smell of stale coffee mixed with rain from the night before. She stared at her phone on the counter, willing it to light up. The minutes ticked by like torture. Each second that passed was a verdict against his promises. She gripped the counter so hard her knuckles turned white. Hope hurt, but letting go felt worse. Her best friend Sarah called, voice sharp with concern. Sarah said, "Emily, he's not worth this." Emily forced a smile through tears, answering, "You don't understand, he promised me." Sarah's silence was heavier than words. Emily's chest tightened with guilt. She knew Sarah was right, but she couldn't let go. Every sacrifice she had made, missed nights out, lonely birthdays, empty mornings, was for him. To admit Sarah was right would mean every sacrifice was wasted. So she clung tighter to Michael, even if it was only to his ghost. Emily scrolled through social media, hunting for signs of him. Every photo of Michael felt like both salvation and poison. His smile in one picture made her chest ache. The girl in the background made her stomach twist. She whispered, "Who is she?" Jealousy burned through her veins, a wildfire she couldn't stop. Her mind spun with stories she didn't want to believe but couldn't silence. She slammed the phone down, the sound sharp in the empty apartment. For the first time, love felt less like hope and more like torment. Night fell again, and Emily sat by the window, hugging her knees. The storm had ended, but inside her the rain never stopped. She whispered, "Michael, do you even think of me?" The city lights blurred into streaks through the glass, echoing her blurred tears. She remembered the way he had sworn their love could outlast oceans. Now, the ocean felt like a graveyard of broken promises. She pressed her forehead against the glass, her breath fogging the cold surface. Hope felt fragile, like glass about to shatter. The silence swallowed her whole. Emily stared at her phone again, each minute of silence carving new wounds into her chest. She whispered, "Michael, why don't you pick up?" She remembered the last time his voice reached her, laughter threading through promises. That memory felt like a cruel echo now. Every unanswered call deepened the ache, each text left unseen, cut deeper than rejection. Her stomach churned, a sick mixture of fear and love. She wanted to believe the excuses she had crafted for him. Late work, bad signal, exhaustion. But her heart screamed a different truth. The miles between them had never felt so violent. That evening, Emily tried to distract herself with homework, but the numbers blurred into meaningless shapes. Her mind drifted to Michael's world, what he was doing, who he was with. She bit her lip hard, blood rising, but she didn't notice. She whispered, "If you loved me, you'd tell me." Jealousy crawled through her veins like poison. She remembered the girl she saw in his photo, laughing too close to him. Emily's chest heaved with anger and sorrow, her body shaking with a truth she was too afraid to admit. She was no longer the center of his life. The next day, Emily's friend Sarah visited, her voice blunt as she set coffee on the table. Sarah said, "You're destroying yourself for someone who doesn't even call back." Emily stiffened, forcing a smile that cracked under her trembling lips. "He just has so much going on," Emily whispered. Sarah's silence spoke louder than her words. Emily's heart raced with shame, torn between clinging to love and hearing the truth she didn't want. Her body felt split, half desperate to defend him, half desperate to collapse into the honesty Sarah carried. That night, Emily saw Michael online. Her heart leapt, but no message came. She stared at the glowing green dot, her pulse racing. She whispered, "Say something." Minutes dragged, then hours. Finally, the dot disappeared. No words, no explanation. Her chest constricted as if the silence had hands. She threw the phone onto the bed, collapsing beside it, tears spilling unchecked. The fear that had whispered before now roared. Michael didn't want to talk to her. He had chosen the silence. The storm inside Emily grew louder. She stood by the window, city lights flickering beneath the night sky, her reflection trembling in the glass. She whispered, "Why am I the only one fighting for this?" Her fists pressed against the cold window pane, as if trying to break through the distance. She remembered his words again, "Well, make it through anything." Now those words felt like rusted chains. The silence became unbearable, swallowing even her prayers. She realized she was pleading with an absence, not a presence. Her knees buckled, and the city lights blurred with her tears. Emily scrolled through her messages again, desperate for proof that her fears were wrong. Then she saw it, a photo tagged by someone else. Michael stood smiling, arm draped around another woman. Her stomach dropped like stone into water. She whispered, "No, it's not what it looks like." But the laughter in his eyes wasn't for her. The closeness of their bodies undeniable. The promises she'd clung to shattered in a single image. Silence hadn't been distance. Silence had been betrayal dressed as love. Her chest tightened as tears blurred the screen. Emily's hands shook as she zoomed in on the photo, searching for lies to erase the truth. She whispered, "Maybe it's just a friend." But her heart screamed that friends didn't hold each other like that. Rage and sorrow clashed inside her, tearing her apart. She remembered his words, "There's no one else but you." Now those words burned like acid. Her body trembled, and she pressed her palm to her chest as if to keep her heart from breaking open. The world she had built around him collapsed in seconds, leaving only ruins. Her phone buzzed suddenly with a message from Sarah. Are you okay?" Emily's hands hovered, unable to type. What could she say? That her entire life had been built on a lie. She whispered, "I'm not okay." The words never left the screen. Instead, she shut her eyes, clutching the phone like it was both poison and lifeline. Sarah's voice echoed in her mind, "He's not worth this." But it was too late. Emily had already given him everything. Emily called Michael, her fingers trembling with fury. The line rang, each second a stab in her chest. Finally, his voice filled her ear, calm, casual, as if nothing was wrong. "Hey, I was busy," he said. She gasped, her voice breaking. "Busy with her?" Silence followed, thicker than storm clouds. Michael stammered, "It's not what you think." But every word he spoke was gasoline on the fire of betrayal. The truth wasn't distance anymore. The truth was choice. He had chosen someone else. Emily collapsed onto the floor, phone still pressed to her ear, as his excuses spilled like broken glass. She whispered, "You told me distance was temporary. But your lies, they're permanent." Her voice cracked, raw with pain. For the first time, she felt the truth pierce her completely. He had never held her as tightly as she had held him. The ocean between them was never just miles. It was his heart drifting away long before she realized. Her tears fell freely, pooling onto the cold wooden floor beneath her. Emily sat frozen, the phone pressed to her ear as Michael's excuses spilled like weak threads. She said, "I gave up everything for you. Do you even care?" Her voice trembled, sharp with pain. Michael sighed, his tone tired. "Emily, you're overreacting." The words sliced deeper than silence. Her chest tightened, anger boiling with heartbreak. She whispered, "Overreacting? You're holding someone else while I'm breaking alone." Tears blurred her vision, rage flooding her veins. For the first time, she felt the strength of her own fury, rising like fire against betrayal. Michael's voice hardened, "You don't understand my life here." Emily's breath caught, her hands shaking violently. She said, "I stayed awake every night for you. I missed birthdays. I lost friends. I lost myself." Her words spilled like fire, each syllable trembling with truth. Michael muttered, "You're suffocating me." Emily's body jolted as if struck. She whispered, "I was loving you. You turned it into suffocation." Her knees weakened, but her voice carried the weight of years of sacrifice collapsing into rage. Emily's voice rose, sharp and broken. "Tell me the truth, Michael. Was she worth more than me?" Silence lingered, heavy, suffocating. Finally, Michael's voice cracked, "I didn't mean for this to happen." Emily's throat burned as she screamed, "You meant every lie, every promise you left me with." Her body trembled, rage pouring into every word. The love that once anchored her now strangled her, leaving her desperate to claw free. Her scream filled the room, echoing louder than the storm that had once haunted her nights. Michael's tone turned cold. "I can't do this anymore." The words shattered Emily like glass hitting stone. She staggered, clutching her chest as if to keep her heart inside. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "After everything, you end it like this." Michael didn't respond. The silence stretched like a noose, pulling tighter with each second. Emily fell to her knees, the phone slipping from her grasp onto the floor. The sound echoed through the room, final and cruel. Her tears fell like endless rain. Emily knelt on the floor, her sobs breaking the silence Michael left behind. She whispered, "I begged you to fight for us, but you chose to walk away." Her body trembled violently, her palms pressed against the cold floor. The love she had clung to now burned her from the inside. She screamed into the emptiness, but no one answered. In that moment, she understood that love hadn't been stolen. It had been surrendered by him. The final pieces of her hope crumbled into dust, leaving her broken, but alive in her fury. Emily sat on the cold wooden floor long after Michael's voice disappeared, the silence pressing against her ears like heavy chains. Her breath came in shallow bursts, each inhale reminding her of what was lost. She whispered, "It's over," as if speaking the words aloud would help her believe them. But the sound of her voice felt foreign, like a stranger echoing through an empty house. She lifted her head toward the window, watching the city lights shimmer with indifference. The world outside moved forward, unaware of the war ending inside her. She pressed her hands flat against the floor, grounding herself in the present, though her heart still clawed for what had vanished. The weight of years of waiting, of sacrifices made in the name of love, pressed down on her shoulders. She had loved fiercely, but it hadn't been enough to keep him. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but there was a strange calm beneath the storm. The truth had been revealed, the mask had fallen, and she no longer had to fight for someone who had already surrendered her love. The morning sun slipped through the blinds, painting pale stripes across Emily's face. She hadn't slept, her body aching with exhaustion, but her mind strangely quiet. She whispered, "I survived the night," almost surprised at the truth. The phone lay discarded on the floor, screen black, finally silenced after hours of ruling her life. She reached for it, her fingers hovering, then pulled back. She didn't need to see more lies. Her reflection in the window startled her, eyes swollen, hair wild, yet something softer lingered beneath the grief. She realized she could breathe without him, even if it was heavy and painful. She remembered the way she had begged for his attention, the way she had built her world around him. Now she saw the emptiness, not as weakness, but as space to rebuild. Sarah's words echoed, "He's not worth this." For the first time, Emily believed them. Emily brewed coffee slowly, her hands trembling but steadying with each movement. The smell filled the kitchen, bitter yet grounding. She whispered, "I can do this," as if reminding herself of forgotten strength. She placed the mug on the counter, staring at the steam rising like a fragile promise. Her chest still ached, the wound raw, but the silence felt less suffocating than the night before. She remembered all of the nights she had waited, the sacrifices she had made. Now she asked herself, what if I stopped waiting? The thought scared her, but also freed her. She realized her life didn't have to orbit around Michael anymore. She could reclaim the pieces of herself she had abandoned. Her heart still throbbed with pain, but beneath it, a spark of defiance flickered. It whispered that maybe she could rise stronger than the version of herself who had begged for scraps of love. Later, Emily sat across from Sarah at the cafe, the clatter of cups and murmur of voices swirling around them. Sarah reached for her hand, squeezing gently, her eyes full of worry. Emily smiled faintly, whispering, "You were right." Sarah's shoulders softened in relief, but her expression held sorrow for her friend. Emily told her everything, the lies, the silence, the photo. Her voice cracked but didn't break. Sarah said, "You didn't lose love, you lost a weight." Emily let the words sink in, her heart heavy but not hopeless. She realized she wasn't as alone as she had felt. There were people who saw her, who cared enough to speak the truths she had been too afraid to admit. She sipped her coffee, the bitterness strangely comforting, grounding her in the present moment. For the first time, she felt the faint outline of freedom. That night, Emily returned home, the apartment still carrying the shadows of heartbreak. But something had shifted. She walked to the window, city lights flickering like restless stars. She pressed her palm against the glass, whispering, "I'll learn to live without you." Her chest ached, but the words didn't suffocate her this time. She pulled her phone from the floor, powered it off, and set it aside. For once, she didn't wait for his name to glow. The silence wrapped around her again, but now it felt like her own. She sat down, letting tears fall freely, not as chains, but as release. Her heart was still cracked, but within the cracks, light began to seep in. The distance had destroyed their love, but it had given her back herself. She closed her eyes, whispering, "Tomorrow will hurt too, but tomorrow will come." Emily walked through the city streets at dusk, her breath rising in the cold air, the weight of recent days clinging to her. People brushed past her, wrapped in their own worlds, but she felt invisible. She whispered, "I'm still here," as though the words would anchor her to herself. Neon signs flickered overhead, their light reflecting off wet pavement, guiding her forward. Each step felt heavy, but deliberate, as though she was walking away from the ruins of the past. She remembered the nights spent waiting for Michael's calls, the mornings filled with silence, the lies that had cut deeper than distance. Her heart still ached, but beneath the pain, there was a quiet determination. She no longer needed his voice to define her worth. The city's hum became her rhythm, a reminder that life moved forward, even through heartbreak. She pulled her coat tighter, lifted her chin, and took another step. Later that night, Emily sat at her desk, journal open, pen trembling between her fingers. She whispered, "If I don't write it down, it'll swallow me." Her words poured onto the page, memories, broken promises, her own pain scrawled in frantic lines. Each sentence felt like tearing away another thread binding her to him. She wrote the truth she had avoided for months. Michael was not the love I believed in. He was the lie I wanted to believe. Her tears smudged the ink, but she didn't stop. When the last page filled, she closed the journal, pressing her hand against the cover like sealing away a ghost. The silence felt different this time, not empty, but cleansing. For the first time, she felt she was speaking back to the darkness instead of drowning in it. The next morning, Sarah knocked gently on Emily's door, bringing coffee in her hands. Emily opened it, surprised at her own faint smile. Sarah said, "You're stronger than you think." Emily whispered, "I don't feel strong." Sarah replied softly, "That's what strength looks like, choosing to keep going." Emily accepted the cup, the warmth spreading into her hands like borrowed courage. They sat together quietly, no words needed, just the comfort of presence. Emily realized love didn't vanish with Michael. It still existed in friendship, in resilience, in her own heartbeat. For the first time in weeks, she let herself lean against someone else, no longer ashamed of her scars. The pain remained, but it didn't own her. That evening, Emily stood at the window again, the city alive beneath her. She touched the glass lightly, remembering the nights she had begged for Michael's name to appear on her screen. Now the phone lay silent on the table, untouched. She whispered, "I don't need it anymore." The skyline shimmered, indifferent yet beautiful, and she let herself breathe deeply. The ache inside her hadn't vanished, but it had changed. It no longer felt like chains but like a scar, painful, yet proof she had endured. She realized healing wasn't forgetting. It was learning to carry the memory without letting it define her. She exhaled slowly, her reflection in the glass no longer fragile but quietly strong. Emily lay in bed, the darkness pressing softly around her. She whispered, "This is the first night I won't wait for you." Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen black, no longer a beacon of hope or despair. She turned her face into the pillow, tears slipping silently onto the fabric. For once, the tears weren't pleas, they were release. She thought of all the nights she had begged, all the mornings she had woken to emptiness, all the lies that had stolen her sleep. Now, there was only silence, but it belonged to her. Her breathing slowed, steady, as though her body finally believed she could survive. The ache would remain, but she would rise with it. And as she closed her eyes, the final truth whispered through her mind, and that was the last time his name ever lit up her phone.